Hey Rock on Beer viewers, today we are going to talk about WLP644 Britannomyces Trois. And if you're not aware, there's actually some controversy going on in the brewing world over this yeast, and basically, the story boils down to White Labs sells this yeast as a Britannomyces strain, and they say that it's like a very low Brett character strain that has a lot of kind of fruity elements to it. So it's kind of been lauded recently as the strain to do 100% Brett fermentations with, which I know a lot of brewers, both home brewers and pro brewers, have been doing. And a small independent lab has recently put out that they tested this yeast, and their sequences can show no actual Brett in it, no Britannomyces. It's all Saccharomyces, which is just regular brewer's yeast. So that's kind of stirred up the brewing world. If you want to know more about it, I have some links. There's an article on my blog about this strain and about the beer that I'm going to be showing. So you can click on that, and that's got some links to some more in-depth analysis of the problem. But basically what I'm going to be doing with this video is that just like literally days before this all came out, I made a 100% Brett Pale Ale, and I used this strain, this WLP644 Britannomyces Trois. And this was obviously before everything came out, so I assumed that it would be a Brett strain, and I made a pale ale, and I pitched 100% Brett in it, and this is what came out the other side. And I'm just gonna taste it and kind of give my thoughts on the taste of it and what I think of maybe whether there's truth to there not being any Brett, or whether I think that there might be. I don't know. Yeah, let's take a look. One thing I can tell you about the fermentation of this beer that could give you know, some legitimacy to the not being Brett is the fact that the gravity stalled out at about 1014 on this, and no matter what I did, it wouldn't go any lower. So I mean, if you're familiar with Brett, it really can, I mean, it can process sugars that regular brewer's yeast can't. So so usually the gravity goes super low on it, like all the way down to, you know, closer to 1.000 than, well, what I got, which is, you know, not even really all that great for instance, just a regular California ale yeast. So I bottled it, and it's been in the bottle now for well over a month, and it's not over-carbonated, which is another thing that could be towards not having Brett in it, because usually if you bottle a higher gravity beer with Brett and you cap it off, you're gonna get bottle bombs. And I mean, these, you can see they're filled really high up the neck even for a home brew, and they have not over-carbonated. This is not gushing. But I am going to pour it. It is carbonated. It did carbonate nicely. It carbonated to, I did it to an absolute low end of an ale for sugar addition. And then you can see it did carbonate nicely. And I have a clean version of this that I just brewed with USO5 California Ale yeast, and I'll do a side-by-side of those in another video, and maybe I'll like link it up here. But for now, I just wanted to talk about this beer. The thing about this is that it smells kind of like a Brett beer. It has a definite the clean beer that I made before I dry hopped it. It smelled like malty and a little hoppy. This beer, it has a distinct funkiness to it. Not like a really Brett, like a barnyard funkiness, but it's like a white wine kind of like brightness. It's like a slightly acidic, bright kind of note to it, with a definite, I mean, it really smells like Brett. It smells like a, like the really, like a 100% Brett fermented beer that doesn't have a lot of hops in it, which I didn't dry hop this because I wanted the character of the yeast to really come through. So it's definitely has a really unique character. I mean, whether it's Brett or not, yeah, I definitely can tell why people would think this is Brett, because it does have... This isn't a character that I would associate with a regular brewer's yeast. And the same in the body. It has a really unique flavor, and it has some of those notes that you get from Brett. It has a little bit of funk to it. It has a little bit of kind of white winey fruitiness, like grape juicy type flavor. And then it also has an off flavor that I associate with certain Brett beers, which is it has a slight taste of... It has a slight taste of like rubbery, not as bad as some Brett beers I've had, but definitely there is kind of a rubbery taste in the background. It's mostly on the aftertaste. It's definitely the body of this beer. When I compare it with my my clean beer that I use USO5 with, this is definitely more full-bodied, which again leads me to think that there isn't that much or any Brett in the beer itself, because I've just never had a full-bodied Brett beer before. But it's interesting. It has some really interesting flavors to it. Like I said, white wine, but more like sparkling white wine, almost a champagne type, like bright grapiness, and that was a lot more apparent a few weeks ago. It's fading out now into more of a kind of reserved flavor, and I can say definitively this is not fermenting any further in the bottle. You can see that the carbonation is super low in it. It doesn't have a lot of carbonation, so it's not continuing to ferment in the bottle. And I mean, you know, when it really comes down to it, I think that the rumors are right. I really don't think there's any Brett in this beer. Just from the empirical evidence of the fact that I haven't gotten any bottle bombs, I haven't really gotten any extra fermentation in the beer itself, and from the just really low instance of any kind of Brett flavors in the beer, I would definitely say that I would side on the side of that there probably isn't any Brett in this beer. Which, I mean, in the end, it's it's an interesting yeast. It's you know, it has an interesting flavor. It's different than a lot of it's closer to like a saison, but it doesn't have that kind of spicy phenol and like black pepper taste to it. It's more round and grapey with a, you know, a distinct, yeah, fruitiness. I mean, it's definitely way more fruit than any other kind of like Belgian ale yeast that I can think of. But it definitely is not funky. It definitely is not. It's not highly carbonated. It didn't go to a very low gravity. So, I mean, definitively, who knows until White Labs comes out with their answer. But I really don't think there's any bread in it, and it's still it's a nice beer. But I mean, to be perfectly honest, I definitely wouldn't buy the yeast again because it's not interesting enough, in my opinion. And especially that, you know, you get way less cells in the vial for slightly more money. I think that this yeast strain cost me 70 kroner, which is about $12, $14. And, you know, you don't get that many cells in the actual. I had to build a big starter up to get this to actually ferment. And, yeah, that's just not fair in my opinion. If there's no bread in it, then it should be sold as a regular brewer's yeast with that amount of cells in it, and definitely should have the Brettanomyces taken off of it. But that's my opinion. I'm looking forward to seeing some more evidence on this and seeing what White Labs actually comes out with. But until then, it still makes a tasty beer. But is it Brett? I don't think so. And that's my opinion, and go ahead and give me yours. I would love to hear it. But cheers. Hey, if you enjoyed my humble opinion on Brett Trois, please consider subscribing. I do reviews, both commercial beers and homebrew, as well as homebrewing techniques, grain to glass videos, and then other just general brewing and beer nerdery. You could also consider checking out my written word on my website, rockonbeer.com, or check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/rockonbeer. Thanks for watching again.